Going against human nature is the beginning of a comeback. This is the secret that successful people won. T reveal. IV discovered a truth that would instantly silence 99% of people. Don T, all the major regrets, misguided losses, and regrets in your life occur after you chose the more comfortable, simple, and seemingly more sociable path. Think about it. Think about it. Each of us comes with a set of settings. This system is called human nature. It helped our ancestors survive and reproduce in ancient times. For example, the desire for high-calorie food can help us store energy. The fear of danger keeps us away from wild animals, and the group nature keeps us from being isolated in the tribe. However, in today's era of material abundance and spiritual involution, ancient systems have often become the greatest obstacle to our progress. Your human nature desires comfort, avoids pain, and seeks instant gratification. However, in this era, all high-level rewards, whether wealth, wisdom, or deep relationships, are based on delayed gratification, facing pain head-on, and long-termism. You see conflict, and it comes. Your desire to turn things around means that what you have is something that only a few can possess. Even though you are following the same underlying code that most people follow, and that makes you feel comfortable. Is that possible? Therefore, the essence of a turnaround isn't learning new skills or seizing new opportunities, but rather an internal revolution, a war against your own nature. You must learn to go against human nature to reap extraordinary rewards. In today's film, we will talk about those who have truly achieved celebrity transformation. They will never be able to tell you the underlying logic of how to complete your life. Come back by going against human nature. I know that the three words anti-humanity sound uncomfortable and even a bit extreme, but please be patient. I'm not encouraging you to become an emotionless machine. In fact, I am asking you to take back control of your life and embrace those innate concepts that are increasingly incompatible with modern society. More importantly, I'll show you how to gradually and strategically dislike these innate tendencies and transform them into steps on your way up. It is very simple but extremely effective. It can help you turn all the knowledge you heard today into your own memory, so that you can make the right choice instead of the refreshing choice when facing temptation and difficulty next time. How does it go against human nature? I've broken it down into 6 major principles. First, let S start with the most common human trap: instant gratification. Your brain has an ancient reward mechanism driven by dopamine. It tells you to eat when you are hungry, sleep when you are tired, use your phone when you are stressed, and play games when you are stressed. He pursues immediate recovery and happiness. So you will open episode after episode of short videos at 12 o'clock in the evening of your study and turn it to 2 o'clock in the morning. You will be greeted with a cake and take care of yourself on the first day of your determination to lose weight. Start again tomorrow. You turn your salary into the latest electronic products and a batch of beautiful clothes. Although it is not until a few years later that we return to learning, it is human nature. This is not surprising. You are our master S appearance setting. There is a classic experiment in psychology called the Stanford marshmallow. Researchers gave a group of children a marshmallow and told them that if they could hold off for 15 minutes, they would get another. Those who could hold off for the second marshmallow performed much better in academic projects and surveys when followed up as teenagers than those who ate the marshmallow immediately. This experiment cruelly revealed a truth: those who can delay connections will win the future. So the first step to going against human nature is to actively fight against indulging in the pleasure of the moment. Of course, this doesn't mean you have to live an ascetic life, but it does mean you have to realize that all the easy to get pleasures are overdrawing your future. The pleasure of short videos is overdrawing your deep thinking ability. The pleasure of junk food is overdrawing your health. The pleasure of recent consumption is overdrawing your financial security. So how do we do it specifically? First, establish a connection between pain and gain, turning delayed gratification from a foolish endurance into a cost. Effective transaction, for example. If you want to study for an hour, Dawn T, keep thinking about how painful it is and how I don't want to study anymore. You need to speak in your brain as voice. I practice more today. If I study for an extra hour, I will be 1% better than I was yesterday, over a year. This is amazing compound interest. I resisted buying this useless item today. The money I saved, if I manage it financially, will become a considerable fortune in 10 years. The larger marshmallow you envision in the future is clearly visible. Let its glow serve as a beacon to resist temptation. Secondly, develop a sense of awareness to counter strong instincts. Dawn T relies solely on willpower. Willpower can be depleted. Start with a sense of ritual. For example, when you want to start a difficult task, such as writing a report, Dawn T, just lay it out. First, spend 5 minutes tidying up your desk, making tea, and putting on headphones for an hour. Tell yourself that the next step is my deep work time and has nothing to do with the world. This task ritual is a psychological switch that can help you smoothly transition to that anti-human state. Third, cut off the source of temptation. Human nature cannot withstand the test. The most effective method is not to test it, but to not give it the opportunity to be tested at all. If you want to study, put your phone in another room. If you want to lose weight, Dawn T store any snacks at home, just like Odysseus, who had his crew tie him to a pole to resist the Sireness song. Admitting one as weakness and using the environment and tools to restrain oneself is in T shameful. It is wisdom. Remember, all the things that make you successful, reading, exercising, deep thinking, are inherently inhumane, arduous, and unpleasant. Turning over is a process of exchanging short-term pain for long-term gains. When you start to enjoy the higher level of happiness brought by delayed gratification, you are already ahead of 90% of people. The second stubborn disease of human nature is called the refuge zone. Our brain is a natural energy-saving master, and it instinctively chooses the path that saves the most effort, is the most familiar, and is the most comfortable. Therefore, you will find that you would rather spend 3 hours switching back and forth between various things, except for those trivial but simple information, than spend an hour reading a difficult professional book. You would rather repeat the work you are already very skilled at and get a stable salary than challenge the project that is full of uncertainty, but may bring huge growth. We always use pretending to work hard to paralyze ourselves. We may seem busy, but we actually just stuck in our comfort zone. This comfort level is the most gentle poison to growth. What truly transforms you is always what is outside your comfort zone. There is a concept in psychology called necessary clues. What this means is that learning and growth are not the easier the better, but require just the right amount of difficulty and obstacles to allow knowledge and skills to grow in you. Just like fitness, you have to lift weights that make you feel a little bit tired. You get torn apart and then recover to become stronger. If you take a leisurely walk every day, your body will not change at all. The second step against human nature is to actively and deliberately seek and challenge this necessary answer. In the movie The Drummer, the young drummer Andrew was forced by his devil mentor Fletcher in an almost abusive way. Fletcher forced him to break the speed limit until he was bleeding. This approach is certainly extreme, but the anti-human logic behind it is valid. If you don't seal yourself off, you 1T survive. If you don't push yourself to the point of feeling like you are about to die, you never know the depths of your potential. While ordinary people like us don't need to go this far, the principle is universal. Should we apply it? First, define your edge capabilities in your current work and life. Find the abilities you want but are not yet proficient in. This edge area is your best training ground. For example, if you are a copywriter, you might be good at writing short articles but struggle with the logic of longer ones. In that case, the challenge you need is to practice writing in-depth articles over 3,000 words. If you are a programmer, you might be proficient in business code but lack a deep understanding of underlying algorithms. In that case, the challenge you need is to solve LICO-esque difficult problems every day. Second, gamify the challenge. People tend to retreat in the face of difficulty, but games excite them. You need to learn to transform a boring challenge into a game of leveling up, setting clear rewards for yourself with clear levels. For example, after finishing a challenging book, reward yourself with a long-awaited movie. After successfully completing a challenging project, give yourself a short vacation. Tie pain to immediate rewards. Use human nature to deceive human nature. Third, establish a feedback loop in the zone. There is no need for feedback when you are comfortable doing things because everything is under control. But in the challenge zone, feedback comes from your eyes and ears. If you write an article, consult an expert to find out where the problem lies. If you practice a new skill, enter a competition or take a test to see where you stand. The most terrifying thing is blindly working behind closed doors. High-quality feedback is like a mirror, allowing you to clearly see your shortcomings and making every struggle valuable. Stop indulging in the illusion that it seems effortless. All those moments that make you feel a little difficult, a little uncomfortable, and a little drained. Burning are not torturing you, but shaping you. Every attempt to step out of your comfort zone is accumulating human energy for your future turnaround. The third bug is the enhanced self-protection mechanism. When we mess up something, our brain will start a process of shifting the blame to avoid us from feeling that we are no good and useless. It's not my fault. It's bad luck. It says the lack of cooperation from others. Or there is something wrong with this method. We are all born defense lawyers, always finding the perfect excuse for our failures. This self-forgiveness protects our fragile egos in the short term, but in the long term, it deprives us of the most valuable opportunity to learn from our failures. If you always forgive yourself, the market won forgive you, and neither will life. The third step in going against human nature is to stop being your own defense attorney and start being your own chief prosecutor. You must learn to coldly, even ruthlessly, review every failure. Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, highly advocates the concept in his book, Principles Pain Plus Reflection Equals Progress. He believes pain is a signal telling you something is wrong and you need to stop and reflect. He even developed a system within the company that allows everyone to publicly comment on each other. Mistakes. The purpose is to combat the human tendency to hide mistakes and glorify failures. This process is extremely anti-human because it requires you to face your own stupidity, short-sightedness, and ignorance. Only then can you find the true root cause of the problem and ensure you don't fall into the same pit again. How can you conduct a high-quality, ruthless review? First, maintain a neutral approach. At the beginning of your review, absolutely avoid using any emotionally charged or subjective language. Don't say, I foolishly missed that opportunity. Instead, say signally appeared in the market on a certain day of a certain month. I chose action B instead of action C, which ultimately led to result D. Disentangle yourself and state only objective facts, like a referee recording data. This is the first step to avoid falling into the trap of self-criticism or self-defense. The second method is root cause mining. Ask 5 consecutive questions about the direct cause of the failure. For example, why did this project fail? Because the delivery was delayed. The first question is why the delay was because the development of a key module was stuck. The second question was, why did this module get stuck? Because the colleague in charge was inexperienced. The third question was, why did you assign an inexperienced colleague to work on such a critical module? Because I thought the task was not difficult and wanted to give him a chance. Fourth, why did I misjudge the difficulty of this task? Because I didn't fully assess and anticipate the technical difficulties before launching the project. You see, by the fifth question, The root cause of the problem shifted from simultaneous failure to my own poor decision, making this is truly effective review. Third, establish an error log. A good memory is worth a bad nose. Record the lessons you learn from each of your failures, the lessons that truly belong to you. This error log is in T a pillar of shame. It is your most valuable personal asset. Before you make your next big decision, look through your error log to see if there are any similar situations or lessons you can learn from. This can greatly improve the quality of your decision making. The speed at which a person grows does not depend on how smart he is, but on how quickly he learns from his mistakes. Stop being too indulgent and tolerant of yourself. Every failure is a paid course for cognitive upgrading, and the tuition is your courage to face pain. Only those who dare to be ruthless to themselves can live easily in the real world. Human nature is the instinct of social animals. Our ancestors would die if they left the group, so they long to be recognized. We are afraid of being different, afraid of being the same. This desire for group recognition gives us a sense of security, but it also dulls our edges and stifles our creativity. Real opportunities are never found in the worst places in life. When everyone is rushing in one direction, that direction often has no dividends and may even be a huge trap, whether it is investment, entrepreneurship, or personal growth. The real breakthrough comes from independent thinking and judgment. Therefore, the fourth step of anti-humanity is to break free from the group S-gravity and enjoy or even actively choose high-quality loneliness. The loneliness here does not mean that you will be isolated from social interaction and become a lonely person. It refers to a psychological state, the ability to block out external noise and focus on your own inner voice. Xu Benhua once said, "I particularly like a person who can only be himself when he is alone." In a group, we play various roles: son, husband, employee, and friend. We wear masks, speak appropriately, and do things that meet everyone's expectations. Only when you are alone can you remove all pretense and have a conversation with your true self. What do you really want? What do you really care about? Where's your life heading? The answers to these ultimate questions can only emerge in solitude. So how can you cultivate the ability to be actively alone? First, set up a space for solitude. Arrange a period of undisturbed solitude for yourself every day or every week. It can be an hour or an afternoon. During this time, turn off your mobile phone, turn off your computer, and don't meet anyone. You can go for a walk, go to a quiet cafe, or just sit at home and daydream. This barrier is to make room in your heart for those deeper thoughts that are drowned out by daily trivialities to emerge. Secondly, it is to filter information. We live in an era of information explosion. All kinds of news, gossip, and opinions flood into our brains like a flood, making us lose the ability to think independently. Please support the Ming Jing and Diandian columns by liking, subscribing, forwarding, and rewarding your spiritual world. Like the food you eat, requires careful management. Third, practice contrarian thinking. When an idea or opportunity seems popular and everyone is saying it is good, you need to develop a habit of thinking against human nature. Stop and think about the opposite. What the risks are and what if everyone is wrong. Charlie Munger in the Charlie Munger Almanac is a master of reverse thinking. He always says to think in reverse. This way of thinking can help you see blind spots that others cannot see and seize opportunities that others cannot. Remember that all great creations and subversive ideas are born in solitude. When you dare to take the path less traveled, you may temporarily lose some applause and recognition, but you will ultimately win the world. The fifth fatal weakness of human nature is emotion. Our decisions are largely driven not by rigorous logical reasoning, but by primitive emotions like fear, greed, anger, and jealousy. Have you ever said something you regretted because of an impulse? Have you ever bought a stock at a high price due to market frenzy and then got deeply trapped? Have you ever covered up a problem that should have been exposed earlier because of fear of criticism from your boss, which ultimately led to a disaster. These are all emotions making decisions for you. The structure of our brains determines that the signals in our cortex responsible for emotional reactions travel much faster than those in our prefrontal cortex responsible for rational analysis. Therefore, under stress, we tend to feel first and think later. A person who cannot control their emotions cannot control their life. Your emotions are like a wild horse. If you don't tame them, they'll carry you off a cliff. The fifth step in going against human nature is to build a rational firewall between stimulus and response, learning to be the master of your emotions rather than their slave. The most worth learning in this regard is the investment guru Warren Buffett. His famous saying, "When others are greedy, I am fearful. When others are fearful, I am greedy," is an extreme anti-emotional driving ability. When the market is full of carnival and greed, he sees risks. When the market is full of panic and grief, he sees opportunities. The reason why he can become a stock god is not because he can predict the future, but because he can overcome human greed and fear. A truly mature person has emotions, but he will never be swayed by emotions. This is a kind of top-level wisdom and an essential quality for turning things around. We come to the last and most basic anti-human law, anti-thinking laziness. What does this mean? The brain, like muscles, follows the principle of use it or lose it. But human nature is naturally lazy to think. We prefer to accept ready-made conclusions rather than deduce them ourselves. We prefer to use simple labels to define complex things rather than explore the underlying principles. We prefer to rely on past experience rather than adjust our cognition according to new situations. This kind of mental laziness may not be a big deal in daily life, but it fundamentally reduces your chances of making breakthroughs. In this era, the most fundamental difference between people is no longer a lack of information, but a difference in the depth of their thinking. Given the same information, some people only see the surface, while others can discern the underlying trends. Given the same problem, some people can only come up with conventional solutions, while others can devise groundbreaking solutions. This difference stems from a willingness to think deeply. Therefore, the sixth step in combating human nature is to proactively combat this mental laziness, deliberately training your thinking skills, like a muscle. Elon Musk is a brilliant example of this, and he repeatedly emphasizes the concept of first principles thinking. He said, "We have two ways of looking at the world. One is analogical reasoning, which is to see what others are doing and then follow suit. This is lazy thinking. The other is first principles, which is to break down the mistakes and return to its most basic and unshakable axioms and facts. Then, from this foundation, we can rebuild step by step." When he built a rocket, he didn't think about how to make the existing rocket cheaper, but instead asked what the basic components of the rocket were. How much did these raw materials, such as stone, aluminum, titanium, copper, and carbon fiber, cost on the market? Since they only accounted for 2% of the total cost of the rocket, the problem must lie in the manufacturing process. So he decided to build a rocket from scratch, reducing costs by 90% and revolutionizing the aerospace industry. This is the power of deep thinking. It requires tremendous effort and is extremely inhumane, but it can bring you unparalleled insight. Now here comes the key point. How can ordinary people practice deep thinking? First, develop the habit of getting to the bottom of things. Don, easily accept any conclusion you hear. For every opinion, just like the review mentioned above, ask yourself at least 5 questions. For example, if someone tells you that short videos are the biggest trend right now, you should ask why it is the trend and who will benefit from it. What are my advantages? Is it too late to enter now? How long will this trend last? When you think clearly about these questions, your decisions will not be blindly following the trend. Second, read when you are working on a topic. And be satisfied with reading books sporadically and randomly. Set a topic for yourself. such as communication skills, investment, and financial management, or artificial intelligence. Then spend 1 or 2 months finding the 5 to 10 most classic books on this topic and reading them together. You will find that different authors will explain the same issue from different perspectives, and they may even contradict each other. This process will force you to compare, identify, and integrate, ultimately forming your own 3-dimensional and profound cognitive framework on this topic. Third, practice the Feynman learning method. The core of this method is learning through teaching. When you learn a new piece of knowledge, try to explain it in the simplest and most straightforward way to someone who has no knowledge of this field, such as your family or even a child. In this process, you will immediately discover which parts you haven't understood and where your logic breaks down. This process of output forcing input is the touchstone for testing whether you truly mastered a piece of knowledge. And it is also the best way to combat the laziness of pretending to have learned something. Physical laziness will make you lose your figure, while mental laziness will make your life lose its shape. In this rapidly changing world, the only thing that can keep you invincible is not the knowledge you already have, but your ability to continuously acquire high-quality knowledge. This ability is precisely based on deep thinking that counters lazy thinking. Well, I believe that those who have heard this will definitely find it very rewarding, because there is a lot of practical information, and the content is quite dense. To make it easier for everyone to remember, let us review and summarize the 6 anti-human laws. The anti-instant gratification mentality teaches us to delay gratification in exchange for longer-term happiness. The anti-avoidance mentality teaches us to understand that true growth can only be achieved through necessary difficulties. The anti-self-forgiveness mentality allows us to turn every failure into a step towards cognitive advancement through ruthless review. The anti-group identity mentality allows us to dare to hear our true inner voice and find our own path in active solitude. Anti-emotional drive allows us to build a rational firewall and become the master of our emotions rather than their slaves. Anti-thinking laziness allows us to learn to adapt to deep thinking and fundamentally widen the gap between us and others. I know that each of these 6 paths is difficult to walk. It means you have to give up the comfort in front of you, face your own weakness, endure a lifetime of loneliness, and fight against your innate impulses. This process is full of struggle and pain. But what I want to tell you is that turning over a new leaf is never an easy and pleasant thing. It is essentially a war against yourself. The reason you were ordinary in the past wasn't because you didn't work hard enough, but because you spent all your efforts on following people's wishes. You used tactical diligence to mask strategic laziness. Today, you understand that true change comes from looking inward. These 6 principles aren't meant to make you hate your own human nature. I believe you've felt it, but to understand it and transcend it. Just like a good rider, he doesn't kill a wild horse, but understands the horse. Says wildness, then uses superb skills and strong will to control it and use its power for his own benefit. As human beings, we are endowed with the ancient operating system of human nature, but we are also endowed with the higher power of free will. You can choose whether to let this old system run its course and lead you to mediocrity and regret, or to use your free will to carve a brave new script for your life. Psychologist Scott Peck's opening words in The Road Less Traveled are particularly wise. I give them to you and to myself. Life is filled with suffering. This is a great truth, one of the greatest truths in the world. Its greatness lies in the fact that once we understand it, we can achieve transcendence in life. Similarly, the path to a rebirth is inherently against heaven and against human nature. When you truly understand and accept this, congratulations, your rebirth has begun. Thank you for reading this far. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.